The forest didn't whisper that morning. It groaned. Branches clashed high above the narrow dirt road, still wet from the last week's rain. The wind pushed through like it had something to say, but Jared Brooks wasn't listening. Not really. His hands gripped the wheel of the rusted Dodge van, knuckles pale, jaw set. The heater coughed weak air. It was colder than it should have been for October in Black Hollow, Oregon. Beside him, Berger sat alert in the passenger seat, his black and rust coat bristling with each sharp turn. The German shepherd's eyes flicked between the road and Jared. Watching. Waiting. Jared hadn't been back in nearly 30 years. The sign was barely legible, just a faded slab of wood nailed to a leaning post. Ray Hollow, private property. The trees swallowed it whole within a few feet, and then, just beyond the final bend, the land opened up. The clearing was exactly as Jared remembered, and nothing like it. The ground had risen wild, swallowing fences and footpaths. Blackberry vines strangled the edges of the old clearing, and in the center, cradled high in the crook of an ancient oak, was the thing that had haunted his sleep for years, the treehouse. It sagged to one side, wooden boards grey with time and rain. One rope ladder hung like a limp arm, nearly torn through at the top. A plank had fallen from the side railing, leaving a jagged bite out of the balcony. Jared cut the engine and let the silence wrap around them. He didn't expect anything from this place. Not peace, not comfort, not answers. His grandmother Edith Ray had died alone, left no funeral, no will except a single envelope mailed to a shelter where he'd been crashing last winter. It held a hand-drawn map, her signature in shaky cursive, and one sentence, "Come home if you still can." Jared stepped out. The earth was soft underfoot. Wet pine needles muffled the sound of his boots. He pulled the collar of his coat tighter, glancing towards the sky. Rain again. Soon. Berger hopped down, sniffed the ground, and froze. His tail lifted, ears shot forward. "Easy," Jared muttered. But the dog wasn't moving easy. He was locked in. Jared followed his line of sight, the base of the oak. Berger growled low. Deep. Not warning, not afraid. Certain. Jared approached the massive trunk. It was the kind of tree that had watched generations come and go, roots thick as a man's torso. Jared reached out, ran a hand over the bark, and whispered, "Yeah, I remember." That summer he turned 9, the one where he hid up in that treehouse for 3 days, straight after his mother left for good. No note, no goodbye. Just the sound of her heels on gravel, and Edith Ray's hand tightening on his shoulder. He hadn't cried since. "Let's see if she still holds," he muttered, tugging on the rope ladder. It groaned, but didn't snap. He climbed slowly, favoring the leg that still stiffened in the cold, leftover damage from an IED outside Mosul. He was halfway up when Berger barked again, louder now, tail rigid as a wire. "What is it, boy?" Berger didn't answer, but his body language was screaming. He pawed at the ground near the base of the tree, then circled, nose down. Jared reached the platform, pulled himself up, and crouched low. The treehouse smelled of sap and dust and something older. Memory. The inside hadn't fared well. Cobwebs ruled the corners. A broken lantern lay sideways near a pile of decayed books. Rain had snuck in through a hole in the roof. But the bones of the place held. Jared stood slowly, testing the creaking boards. The floor beneath the eastern wall felt slightly uneven, like something had shifted. Outside, Berger let out another bark, sharper. Jared's instincts, dormant but not dead, spiked. He moved toward the wall. The dog's barking stopped. Silence fell hard. Then came the thump, soft, dull, like something falling beneath him. Jared dropped to his knees, pressing his palm against the warped floorboard. It gave under his touch. Barely. He pulled a pocket knife from his coat and wedged it along the edge of the board. With a grunt, he lifted. It cracked upward. Below, not dirt, not rot, a space, hollow. Jared leaned back, heart ticking faster. He reached inside. His fingers brushed old wood. A box, heavy. He dragged it out slowly. It was about the size of a shoebox, wrapped in a layer of oilcloth gone brittle with time. He peeled it back. Dust flew. Berger was at the top of the ladder now, pacing. "Yeah, I know. This feels wrong." Jared opened the box. Gold, not jewelry, coins, dozens of them. Thick, heavy, stamped with old eagles, Latin inscriptions, strange dates, some from the 1800s, some newer. Each gleamed like they'd never been touched by air. He froze. Beneath the coins was a letter. Folded. Yellowed with time. The same handwriting from the envelope he'd received months ago. Jared unfolded it. His grandmother's voice rang clear through every shaky line. "Jared, if you found this, it means you came home. This is only the beginning. There's more. Much more. But you'll have to earn it. Trust the dog. Trust your instincts. And if the wrong people come looking, don't be here. Love always, Grandma." He read it again. And then again. Berger's growl brought him back. A figure at the edge of the woods. Jared's blood ran cold. They weren't alone. He slammed the box shut, kicked a blanket over it, and moved to the ladder. Berger was already at the base, teeth bared, tail stiff. The man stepped back into the trees, melting into shadow. Jared didn't follow. Instead, he stood at the edge of the platform, the wind rising through the trees, the cold gnawing at his spine. He whispered to no one. "What the hell did you bury out here, Grandma?" Behind him, the treehouse creaked again, and beneath his boots, the floor breathed secrets. The next morning broke with frost in the grass, and a silence too clean to trust. Jared sat cross-legged on the floor of the treehouse, a dented thermos of black coffee beside him, and Berger sprawled near the wall, eyes open, ears twitching. The box from the night before sat beneath a folded tarp. Jared hadn't slept. He'd kept one eye on the window, one hand near the crowbar beside his bedroll. But no one came. Just the wind through the branches and Berger, keeping watch like a statue with a heartbeat. He still hadn't processed the gold. He couldn't. You don't walk around with half a pound of coin from the 19th century and not feel something shift inside. And the letter. God, that letter. This is only the beginning. Like a puzzle, but with the wrong corners missing. Berger stirred, then stood. He padded over to the far corner, the one nearest the outer wall, and sniffed hard. Not just curious, intent. He pawed once at a floorboard, stepped back, then sat. Stared at Jared, like he was waiting for him to catch up. Jared set the thermos down. "Again." He walked over, crouched beside the dog, ran his hand along the floorboard Berger had flagged. It looked the same as the rest, weathered, dusty. But when he tapped it with his knuckle, the sound came back dull, hollow. "Seriously, boy?" Berger gave a low, brief grunt. Not a growl, a confirmation. Jared pried up the edge. The nails gave with less effort than he expected. The board lifted. Beneath it was a pocket between the floorboards and the curved wall of the tree trunk, about a foot deep, lined with what looked like old tarp and wax paper. He reached in. Another box, smaller than the one before. This one made of dark wood, edges worn smooth. It had no lock, no hinge, just a fitted lid, tight from years of moisture and time. He popped it loose with the knife. Inside, velvet cloth lined the box, faded but clean. Laid across the cloth, 2 rows of older gold coins stamped with symbols Jared couldn't place. Next to them, a small folded paper, his grandmother's handwriting again. He unfolded it carefully. Jared, if your hands are holding this, then the tree has started speaking. This is not treasure for surviving. This is for waking up. You've lived too long in the shadows, too long letting pain be your only story. There is more here. You know it. But don't just search for wealth. Search for the reason you are still breathing. Dig deeper, not for survival but for purpose. Your instincts are louder than the fear. Listen to them. You're not alone. Edith Jared stared at the note, barely blinking. His hands trembled just slightly. Berger moved in close, placing his chin on Jared's knee like he'd done during those shaking nights in Albuquerque, when Jared couldn't breathe without thinking of sand and gunfire. You're not alone. He said it out loud, just to hear it, just to test it. The treehouse groaned again, a soft sound of old wood adjusting. But it didn't feel ominous. It felt alive, watching, breathing. Maybe he was losing it. Or maybe the dog wasn't the only one listening. He folded the letter back, placed it in his jacket pocket, and looked around. The message was clear. There was more. A whole pattern he hadn't seen. Why else would she leave the map, the boxes, the warnings? Not just to survive. He muttered. Berger's ears perked again. He turned toward the open window, let out a soft bark. Something out there? Jared stood, moved to the edge, scanning the clearing. Nothing, but he felt it now, in his gut, like a hum in the chest, like the seconds before an ambush. But this time, no enemy was approaching. The danger wasn't outside, it was inside him. Doubt, fear, that urge to bury the box, forget the letter, keep running. No, not this time. He looked down at Berger. You knew, didn't you? The dog tilted his head slightly, eyes fixed on Jared's face. Then, like a signal, he turned and trotted toward the ladder, tail high. We're not done here. Jared followed him down. He started scanning the base of the tree again, looking for anything unnatural, carvings, seams, indentations. Berger circled like a sentry, sniffing low and slow. By midday, Jared had found 3 more panels on the trunk that didn't match the natural grain, and though they didn't open yet, they gave him proof. This tree was more than a shelter. It was a vault, a message, a blueprint maybe. And if Berger hadn't kept scratching, he would have missed it all. They worked until the light started fading. Jared set up camp again in the treehouse, this time with a lantern ready, a charged radio, and a sharpened blade within reach. But the panic from the night before wasn't there. There was clarity now. Not comfort, but direction. As the sky dimmed and the forest hushed, Jared sat on the floor with Berger curled beside him. The old dog lifted his head once, nose twitching towards the southern wall, then relaxed again. Jared exhaled. Tomorrow they would dig deeper. Not for gold. For truth. Jared didn't sleep. Not really. He closed his eyes, but the air inside the treehouse buzzed with something thick and invisible, like the moment before a lightning strike. By dawn, he was already crouched on the floor again, hands raw from peeling back warped boards and brushing away decades of dust. Berger lay nearby, head up, eyes tracking every move. The German shepherd hadn't barked once, but Jared could feel it. The dog was locked in, sensing something close. Every instinct told Jared this tree was hiding more. Berger stood suddenly, tail straight, nose flaring toward a knot in the curved wall near the base of the trunk. Then he did something Jared had only seen him do once, during a search and rescue drill back in New Mexico. He pawed once, stopped, then pressed his body low to the ground and stared. That's your search stance. Jared muttered. What the hell is under there? He moved fast, pulled a pry bar from his pack, and wedged it between the wooden slats along the interior curve of the wall. These weren't standard boards. They had been cut to match the shape of the tree itself, blending into the natural lines. But one of them gave with a crack. Behind it was a hollow, and inside that something metal. Jared dragged it into the light. It was a steel lockbox, heavy as sin and covered in a layer of waxed cloth that had hardened over time. Rust had bloomed around the hinges, but the frame held solid. It hadn't been touched in years. Berger let out a low chuff, stepping back like he knew whatever was inside mattered. Jared cracked it open with a tire iron, his breath catching when the lock finally gave. Inside were bundles. Not cash, not gold. Documents. Paper so old it curled at the edges, yet sealed in plastic sleeves like someone knew exactly what they were doing. He lifted the top folder. The logo hit him first. An old, faded Apple emblem, the rainbow-striped one. Then another. Microsoft. Then a third. Amazon, back when their logo was just text on a white background. Jared's mouth went dry. He flipped through each bundle. Stock certificates, original issues. Some dated back to 1984, others from the mid-90s, each with signatures, registration numbers, and purchase prices so low they felt like misprints. There were bonds, too, bearer bonds, untied to any name. Dozens of them, crisp, unredeemed, and under the final divider, a handwritten ledger. He read the first page. 1983, purchased 150 shares, Apple Inc. at 22 share. 1986, Microsoft IPO, 300 shares. 1997, Amazon pre-IPO offer, 1 to 30 share. Jared fell back, the ledger in his lap, unable to breathe. He did the math. Rough, untrained, but enough to know. This wasn't a few $1,000s hidden in the walls. This was generational wealth. Conservatively, $200 million, maybe more, depending on splits, mergers, and dividends. Berger pressed his head into Jared's shoulder, grounding him the same way he had during night sweats and panic attacks. "You seeing this?" Jared whispered. "This isn't real. This can't be real." But it was. He held the ledger tighter, the edges cutting into his palms, anchoring him to the moment. His mind reeled. How had Edith done this? She'd lived like a woman, counting coupons and repurposing coffee cans. No bank accounts, no big purchases. She made quilts, sold jam at the farmer's market. And all this time, she'd been sitting on a fortune, a deliberate one. Jared rifled through the box again and found what he didn't know he'd been hoping for. A note, tucked into a manila envelope, the same cursive handwriting as before. "Jared, you've always had grit, but I need you to have vision now. This was never meant to be a vault for greed. It was a seed. I believed in companies that built the future just like I believed in you. I couldn't give you peace. I couldn't save your mother. But I can give you this. Use it to build something that lasts. Help the people no one else sees. Do not let wolves take this from you. If you're reading this, they already know it's here. Be smarter than them. Be faster. And trust the dog." Jared blinked hard. "Trust the dog," he repeated, voice dry. Berger gave a soft huff, as if confirming. It hit him then. This wasn't just inheritance, it was a mission. And with it came danger. The man he saw in the woods. He wasn't random. The figure watching from the trees wasn't just passing by. He shoved the documents back into the box, layered tarp over it, and secured it under a loose floorboard, different from the one before. Then he swept away the dust with his sleeve, and backed away. Berger was standing again, ears forward, gaze fixed on the same stretch of tree line where Jared had seen movement before. They were being watched. Of course they were. Jared picked up the crowbar and gripped it tight, every nerve in his body humming. The military training kicked in. Plan for breach. Reinforce the perimeter. Inventory the exits. He hadn't survived 3 tours just to get taken down by suits in a forest. He turned to Berger. "We've got something they want," he said. "But they've got no idea who they're messing with." Berger barked once. It wasn't fear, it was warning. The next morning, Jared stared at the box of documents laid out across the floor, feeling the full weight of what he was holding. It wasn't the gold or the bonds that scared him most. It was the realization that this wasn't buried and forgotten. It was hidden, with intention. And now it wasn't hidden anymore. Berger watched him closely as he repacked the steel box. The dog had barely left his side all night. Every time a branch cracked outside, Berger was at the window, muscles tense. Jared felt it too, that crawling sense under the skin that something was coming. He needed answers. Legal ones. By noon, Jared was driving the van down into Black Hollow proper. The town hadn't changed much. Same faded storefronts, same broken sidewalks curling at the edges. But the stairs were new. Eyes lingered on him through diner windows, behind pickup windshields at stop signs. He wasn't a stranger here, but he wasn't family either. He pulled into the gravel lot beside the county office annex, a squat brick building with a sun-faded sign that read, Veteran Support and Legal Aid. Berger hopped out first, nose to the wind. Inside it smelled like old carpet and copy toner. The receptionist glanced up, did a double take, then buzzed him through. She didn't ask his name. As he turned the corner into the back hallway, a familiar voice cut through the low hum of fluorescent lights. Jared Brooks. Thought you were a ghost by now. He looked up. Lena Porter stood in the doorway, arms crossed, that same tilted smile she'd had since junior year. Her hair was shorter now, chin length, streaked with grey, but her eyes were the same sharp hazel, still carrying more fire than warmth. Lena, he said, caught between a smirk and disbelief. I thought you went east. I did. Law school. Then I got pulled back like everyone else. Black Hollow doesn't let go easy. Berger moved forward, giving her a soft chuff. She knelt without hesitation, scratching behind his ears. And who's this handsome guy? Berger. He's got better instincts than me. She looked up. That's not a high bar. They both laughed. It broke the tension in the room. He followed her into her office, a small room packed with folders, case law binders, and an old corkboard layered with post-its and maps. She gestured for him to sit. He laid the manila envelope on her desk. I need you to tell me if this is real. She opened it, pulled out a copy of one of the stock certificates, then another, her brow furrowed. Where did you get these? My grandmother, Edith Ray. Lena leaned back slowly. She was your grandmother. Jared nodded. Edith used to donate preserves to the shelter. Quiet woman, tough as fence wire. She was more than that, he said. Apparently, she was a damn investor. Lena took a moment, flipping through the documents, scanning signatures, dates, seal stamps. Her eyes moved faster the deeper she got. This isn't just real. It's clean. Everything here checks out at first glance. If these were purchased directly and held all this time, Jared, you're sitting on a financial bomb. He nodded. I know. Do you know what they're worth? Ballpark? 200 million, maybe more. She exhaled hard. Jesus. Yeah. Lena closed the folder. I need to run this through a few channels, quietly. I've got contacts in Portland who specialize in estate verification. We'll need to determine if there were any silent transfers or if the holdings went dormant. But it's going to attract attention. It already has. He told her about the man he saw in the woods, the feeling of being watched, the note in Edith's letter. They already know it's here. She didn't dismiss it. She didn't even blink. Then we don't go public, not yet. Berger gave a short bark from under the desk. Lena glanced down. He agree? Jared smiled faintly. He's been right so far. As they packed up, Lena paused at the door. You know they'll come for this, right? Whatever's in that tree, someone else wants it. I figured. You can't fight this alone. Jared's smile faded. I've been alone a long time. Well, she said, pulling a card from her jacket and tucking it into his shirt pocket. Not any more. He stepped back outside into the parking lot. Clouds were rolling in from the west, wind colder than it should have been. Berger scanned the street before hopping into the passenger seat, gaze locked on a blue sedan parked across the street. Don't like the look of it either, huh? Jared muttered. The driver in the sedan lit a cigarette. Never looked up. Jared started the van. As they pulled away, the sedan didn't move, but he felt it. The ripple of attention. The pressure of being seen. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about the people circling the edges of the woods, and whether or not he had the time to outsmart them. The man arrived on a Thursday, mid-morning, sun low behind the clouds, the kind of cold that crept through your boots and settled behind your ribs. Jared had just finished reinforcing the ladder up to the treehouse. Berger was sniffing the base of the oak, tail up but relaxed. Nothing felt off, until it did. A black Escalade pulled into the clearing, too quiet for a vehicle that size. The engine clicked off. Doors stayed closed for a moment too long. Then one opened. He stepped out like he owned the forest. Slick grey suit, dark overcoat, polished shoes that crunched against pine needles without shame. Mid-50s. Expensive tan. Hair combed back so smooth it caught the light. Smile like glass, perfect, empty, and cold. "Mr. Brooks," he called. Jared didn't answer. Berger moved in front of him instinctively, head low, body tense. The man took a few more steps, careful, not close enough to threaten, but close enough to challenge. "My name is Reed Harmon. I represent a collective of investors who believe you may be in possession of certain historic documents." Jared didn't blink. "You with the government?" "No, sir. Just concerned parties with legal interest." Berger growled low, the sound vibrating through Jared's boots. "You can turn around now," Jared said, "or we make this short." Harmon raised his hand slightly. "There's no need for hostility. I'm authorized to offer you $10 million. In cash, untraceable, in exchange for all materials related to the estate of Edith Ray." Jared tilted his head. "Cash. In a secure account, or briefcases if you prefer." Jared laughed once. Dry. "That's subtle. I don't pretend it is, but you're a practical man. You understand what risk looks like. This offer? It's the way out." "No," Jared said, firm. Harmon's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. "Mr. Brooks, this isn't just about you. These documents touch financial ecosystems that don't like surprises. If you won't accept money, they'll send others who prefer less civilized methods." Jared stepped forward. "You tell your collective if they send anyone near me again, I won't be civilized either." Berger barked, sharp and sudden. Harmon flinched. That was enough. He straightened his coat, turned, and walked back to the SUV. The doors closed. Gravel spat as it reversed and disappeared into the trees. Jared stood there for a full minute, heart pounding, eyes locked on the trail the tires had left behind. Berger didn't move until he gave the all-clear. "Good boy," Jared whispered. But his hand didn't leave the crowbar. That night, he slept light. Berger didn't sleep at all. By Saturday, the knock came. A woman at the bottom of the ladder, mid-30s, curly blonde hair, soft voice. She said she was a cousin from Idaho, knew Edith from childhood, wanted to reconnect. Her story fell apart when she said she used to visit Grandpa Ray. Jared never had a grandfather. He told her to leave. Sunday morning, a man in a corduroy blazer and wire-rim glasses showed up with a clipboard, claiming to be a state archivist conducting a survey on historical structures. He didn't have credentials. Jared walked him off the property with a shovel in hand. On Tuesday, Berger got sick. It started after lunch. He staggered halfway across the clearing, then collapsed. His breathing hitched. His eyes rolled. Jared dropped everything, wrapped the dog in his jacket, and drove like hell into town. The vet said it was poison, rat bait, probably mixed in meat, ingested less than 2 hours earlier. Berger survived, but barely. Jared sat on the cold linoleum floor of the vet's office for hours, knees tight to his chest, fists clenched. The nurse offered coffee. He didn't move. His dog lay unconscious on the table, hooked up to a drip, chest rising too slow for Jared's nerves. "You came for me," Jared whispered, voice like sand. "You bastards came for him instead." That was the last line. When he brought Berger home the next day, Jared fortified the clearing, dug trenches, hung motion sensor lights, set up a camera on the outer trail, reinforced every entrance to the treehouse. He started sleeping in 2-hour shifts. Berger, still weak, slept beside him, nose tucked to his flank, eyes opening with every rustle. The fortune wasn't just attracting attention now, it was declaring war. And Jared? He had no intention of backing down. They'd taken everything from him once, his brothers, his peace, his years. But they weren't taking the dog. And they sure as hell weren't taking what Edith had buried. Not without blood in the dirt. The storm rolled in just after midnight. Thunder shook the mountaintop. Rain hammered the canopy. The treehouse groaned with every gust like it was remembering a time it had almost been torn apart. Jared sat on the floor, back against the trunk, his fingers tracing the ridges of Edith's last letter. Berger lay at his feet, head down, ears twitching at every snap of wind. The glow from the lantern cast long shadows on the curved wooden walls. They'd seen rough nights together, but this one felt wrong. Too quiet between the noise. The electricity died first. The lantern blinked out. Then the backup battery in the corner chirped and cut off. Jared stood slowly, alert. Berger growled low in his chest. Then the signal on the sat phone dropped to 0. They'd cut the power. They'd jammed the air. "Go time," Jared whispered. Outside, flashlights flared. Dozens, cutting through the rain like search beams. Shadows moved in a coordinated sweep across the clearing. Boots sloshed through the mud. He counted 6 shapes, maybe more, too many to fight straight on. Berger stood, growling deep now, his coat bristling from tail to muzzle. "Stay with me," Jared whispered, heart pounding. One of the flashlights pointed up. Another figure barked a command. Then Boots hit the first rung of the ladder. They were coming up. Jared moved fast, grabbed his pack, flung open the corner trapdoor beneath the rug, just as Edith had shown him in her second letter. Beneath the loose boards, a narrow shaft led down into the tree's root system. He had cleared it last month, thinking it was just some forgotten crawl space. Now it was a lifeline. He turned to Berger. "Down. Now." The dog obeyed without hesitation, dropping into the dark hole like he'd done it 100 times. Jared followed, pulling the trapdoor shut just as the ladder above groaned from weight. He slid the wood panel silently back into place just before heavy footsteps landed overhead. The tunnel was tight, cold, reinforced with beams cut and laid decades ago. Water dripped from above. Jared moved on hands and knees, Berger crawling just ahead, nose twitching every few feet, as if reading the air. Behind them, thuds echoed through the treehouse floor. Furniture scraped. Boots stomped. One of the intruders barked, "Search the walls, tear it apart." Jared's heart hammered, but the tunnel was holding. They reached the exit after 2 long minutes that felt like 2 hours. A wooden panel sealed the end of the crawl space. Jared braced his shoulders and pushed upward. Earth gave way. The hatch lifted under a fallen log 200 yards downhill, camouflaged by moss and dead leaves. Fresh rain hit his face like knives. Berger climbed out first, scanning left and right. Jared followed, soaked instantly. He dropped behind the log, pulled the satellite radio from the waterproof case inside his bag, and powered it on. A single bar of signal blinked weakly, then locked. He keyed the emergency channel. "Dispatch, this is Jared Brooks in Black Hollow Ridge. Armed men on my property. They've cut power and communications. I am hiding outside the treehouse. Request immediate backup." Static cracked, then a voice. "This is Sheriff Dalton. Sit tight, Jared. Deputies en route. Stay hidden." He tucked the radio away and gripped the hunting knife strapped under his coat. He didn't plan on using it unless forced, but his blood told him to be ready. Back at the clearing, beams of light danced inside the treehouse. The intruders had spread out. 2 guards circled the perimeter. Another man shouted, "It's not here! He moved it!" One of them kicked the inside walls hard enough for Jared to hear it echo through the ground. Berger shifted beside him, barely breathing. Jared laid a hand gently on the dog's back. "Not yet," he whispered. Then headlights cut through the storm. 3 sheriff's trucks barreled in from the tree line, tires churning mud, red and blue lights slicing through the darkness. Doors flew open. Deputies in rain gear poured out, rifles drawn. "Hands up! Step away from the structure!" The clearing erupted in chaos. Men scattered. 2 dove into the trees. One tried to climb out the back window. A flashbang cracked through the night, bright as lightning. Jared shielded Berger's eyes. Within 2 minutes, it was over. 6 suspects down. No shots fired, no blood spilled, just soaked, angry men lying face down in the mud while Sheriff Dalton barked orders. Jared stayed under the log until he was certain. Then he stood, whistled once. Berger trotted beside him like a soldier on parade. They emerged into the clearing together. Dalton turned, squinting through the rain. "You're a hard man to catch off guard." Jared's voice was steady. "I had help." He looked down at Berger. The dog wagged once, slow, deliberate, like he'd known this would happen all along. Dalton clapped Jared's shoulder, heavy with rain. "You did right. Could have gone bad. But you called it in, kept it clean." Jared looked up at the treehouse. The windows were shattered, the walls gouged, but it still stood, just like him. "They weren't here for me," he said. "They were here for the future Edith buried in these walls." Dalton nodded. "Then maybe it's time to stop hiding it." Berger barked once, sharp. Jared looked down at him. "You think so too." The wind picked up again, pushing rain through the trees in sheets, but it didn't feel like fear anymore. It felt like a new beginning, soaked in thunder. The story broke 2 days after the arrests. A local radio host mentioned it first. A mysterious treasure trove found in an old treehouse, tied to a reclusive veteran and the late Edith Ray. By noon, the headlines had spread like fire through dry brush. Treasure, stocks, hidden millions. A treehouse turned fortress. Every angle fed the beast. By nightfall, the news vans arrived. Jared watched them from the shadow of the treehouse, teeth clenched, fists tucked in his coat pockets. Berger stood beside him, tail still, ears flicking at the sounds of strangers laughing behind cameras. He wanted to run. That was his first instinct. Pack up what was left. Disappear again. Let the land swallow him and the story. He'd done it before. After Iraq. After Colorado. After sleeping in too many shelters, watching too many people pretend not to see him. But this time, he didn't. He opened Edith's final letter again. Not for survival, for purpose. That sentence dug deeper than any headline. Later that night, Lena arrived. She climbed the ladder with mud on her boots and wind in her hair. She brought warm food, legal folders, and the same calm presence that had grounded him since the day they reunited. "You look like you've been through a war," she said, setting the containers on the floor. "I was ready to leave," Jared admitted. "Was halfway packed when Berger sat on my duffel bag and refused to move." Lena smiled faintly. Smart dog. He's been trying to teach me that for weeks. They ate in silence for a few minutes, the storm from days ago still lingering in the wood, the air still thick with tension. Then Lena opened the folder. "I've been thinking," she said, "about what Edith wanted, about what you could do with this. Not just keep it safe, but build something that lasts." Jared glanced at the gouges in the treehouse walls, left behind by the intruder's crowbars. This place barely held together. But it did. She pulled out a blueprint. Rough, hand-sketched, but full of heart. It showed a lodge-style shelter tucked into the woods, a place for veterans, for women and children escaping violence, for anyone forgotten by the system. At the top of the page, the Edith Ray Foundation. Jared stared at it. "This your idea?" "No," she said. "It's yours. You just didn't say it out loud yet." Berger padded across the floor and sat between them, resting his head on Jared's knee. His eyes were clear again. Focused. Healing. Jared looked out the window at the floodlights still lingering near the perimeter. "They'll keep coming. With lawsuits, questions, cameras. And we'll meet them with structure, legal strategy, and a mission too pure to tear down. You've been reacting to war for too long, Jared. Maybe it's time to choose your fight." That line landed hard. For so many years, all he'd done was survive. But what Edith left wasn't just money. It was a message. He remembered her hands, rough from work, but gentle when they touched his shoulder. The way she never raised her voice, but always made herself heard. The way she had lived poor, but planned like a queen. "All right," Jared said quietly. "Let's build it." Lena exhaled. "I'll handle the paperwork, but you'll need a board, a mission statement, probably media coaching." He grunted. "I'll handle the tools, and the nails. Let's meet in the middle." The next morning, the news vans were gone, replaced by trucks from the county's construction union and volunteers from town. People who had once whispered about the weird vet in the woods were now dropping off lumber, tools, and baked goods. Jared worked from dawn to dusk. Berger stayed close, tail wagging slow, still recovering, but always present. The old dog began to sleep lighter, bark louder, move freer. Every nail Jared drove into the treehouse was a declaration that they weren't running. That night, under a canvas tarp strung between the trees, Jared stood beside Lena as they unveiled the first official sign. The Edith Ray Foundation. Underneath, in smaller letters, shelter, skill, purpose. The crowd clapped, not loud, but real. An old man from town stepped forward, his cane thudding against the platform. He said, "Edith gave me food once when I had nothing. She told me it's not charity if you do it with dignity. I think she'd be proud of this." Jared didn't speak. His throat was too tight. Berger barked once beside him. The sound cut through the air like a call to attention. The old man smiled. "Good dog," he said. The moment settled into the earth. Jared looked at the sign, at the people, at Lena, at the dog who had followed him through hell and waited patiently for him to stop surviving and start leading. He reached down, rubbed behind Berger's ear. "Guess we're home," he whispered. And for once, it felt true. 1 year later, spring unfolded gently over the hills of Montana. The snow had long melted, replaced by wildflowers that carpeted the path to the cabin. The place had a name now, the Lookout. Locals whispered it with a kind of reverence. It wasn't just a cabin anymore, it was a sanctuary. Jared stood on the newly built porch, arms crossed, watching a group of volunteers finish laying out beds inside the newly expanded wing. He wore clean jeans, a grey flannel, and a navy cap with the organization's logo stitched in white. The Lookout Project. Berger lay nearby, eyes half closed, nose twitching with the wind. A child ran past, giggling. Berger opened one eye, gave a soft woof, and the kid slowed immediately, patting him before running off again. The dog had become something of a legend. People brought him bones, old military collars, even hand-drawn portraits from local school kids. He never acted like a celebrity, just kept watch. Jared turned as a man in a wheelchair approached, his leg missing from the knee down. One of the newer residents. "Hey, Micah," Jared said, reaching out to shake his hand. "You were a sniper, huh?" Micah asked, wheeling up beside Berger. "Funny how the guy who once pulled triggers is now pulling people out of the gutter." Jared smiled faintly. "People change." Micah pointed at Berger. "That dog ever change?" "Nope," Jared said, kneeling beside Berger, still guarding. Inside the cabin, walls were now lined with shelves, books, canned food, stacks of clean clothes. A therapist held sessions every Thursday. A nurse came twice a week. There were bunk beds in one wing, a meditation room in another. But the heart of the place remained unchanged. Jared's old cot still sat by the window. Berger's blanket, though replaced many times, still occupied the same corner. One evening, a podcast team arrived from Denver to record a story on The Lookout. The host, a young woman named Riley, set up a microphone near the fireplace. "You mind if we start with your story?" she asked Jared. "I'd rather start with his," Jared said, nodding toward Berger. Riley chuckled. "He doesn't talk much." "Sure he does," Jared said. "You just got to listen right." Later, when the interview aired, people across the country heard Jared say, "I was gone for a long time, inside my head, I mean. Berger never left. Even when I pushed everyone away, he stayed. Some nights I'd be curled up on that floor wishing it'd all just stop. And I'd feel this weight on my chest. Not panic, not grief, just fur. Warm, breathing fur. And it was like he was saying, 'I got you. We're not done yet.'" Riley leaned forward. "What's the lookout really for?" Jared thought a moment. "It's not about giving people a second chance. It's about reminding them they were never broken to begin with." That line went viral. Donations surged. A construction crew came the following month to help expand. A retired general sent a check with a handwritten note. "Thank you for guarding what matters. But not everyone supported the lookout." One evening, as Jared returned from town, he found spray-painted words on the new barn wall. "Fraudvet, go back to the streets!" Berger was already there, standing between the barn and two figures in hoodies, growling low. When Jared whistled, the dog didn't move, his stance frozen, fur bristling. "Hey!" Jared shouted. The men turned and bolted into the woods. Berger chased only a few feet before returning to Jared's side. "That was new," Jared muttered, kneeling. "Guess we're doing something right." Jared scrubbed the graffiti clean the next morning. No police reports, no press release. He just painted the wall a deeper brown. Over time, the incident became a small story they told around the campfire, not as a warning, but as proof. They were making waves. One night, Micah wheeled out to the edge of the porch where Jared sat sipping coffee. Berger sat between them. "I keep thinking about that night," Micah said. "The spray paint." "Yeah? You didn't flinch." "I had backup," Jared said, tilting his head toward Berger. Micah reached down and scratched the dog's head. "You ever think about what comes next?" "Every day," Jared said. "But I stopped planning 5-year paths. I just focus on today. One meal, one bed, one story at a time." Berger lifted his head, ears twitching toward the sound of a car pulling into the dirt road. Another visitor. Another story. "Still guarding, huh, boy?" Jared whispered. Berger didn't bark. He didn't have to. The laughter of children rang out across the meadow, echoing beneath the tall pines. Their sneakers thudded softly on the grass as they chased each other around the base of the old treehouse, which had been lovingly restored, now adorned with hand-carved wood signs and a rope ladder rebuilt stronger than ever. The plaque on the tree read, Liar's Watch. Nearby, on a shaded patch of ground, a circle of folding chairs surrounded a makeshift agility course. Jared knelt beside a sandy-haired Labrador named Daisy, guiding a boy with tremors in his hands to give the signal. The dog responded instantly, gently resting her head on the boy's knee. "That's it," Jared said, his voice calm and steady. "It's not about commands, it's about connection." Around them, other veterans trained rescue dogs turned, therapy companions, each pair a quiet testimony to the bond that had grown from this place. None of them wore uniforms anymore, but you could see it in their posture, the watchful eyes, the scars, visible and invisible. And all of them had stories. A silver sedan pulled up on the dirt road. A young woman in jeans and boots stepped out, clutching a leather-bound notepad and an old camera slung around her neck. She hesitated before approaching, as if afraid to disturb something sacred. "You Jared Brooks?" she asked, adjusting her glasses. "I'm Rachel Monroe. I write for the American Spirit series. We're doing a feature on forgotten places that became sanctuaries. Someone told me to start here. Said this whole thing started with an old woman and a dog." Jared smiled quietly. He glanced toward the treehouse, then at Berger, now graying around the muzzle but still sharp-eyed, standing sentinel a few feet away. "She wasn't forgotten," he said. "Not by us. And she didn't start it. She just reminded us how to finish it." Rachel scribbled a few lines in her notebook. "Can you tell me more?" she asked. "How did this all come to be?" Jared leaned back against a weathered bench. His eyes scanned the open field where former soldiers taught teenagers how to calm anxious dogs, where laughter now filled a space once filled with silence. "She didn't leave us money," he said finally. "She left seeds. I just planted them. But this," he gestured around, "this only happened because the town showed up to water them." Rachel looked stunned. "And the dog? Berger, right? What did he do?" Jared turned toward Berger, who was lying nearby, watching everything as if still on duty. "He kept us honest," Jared said simply. "Even after the gold, even after the attention, he reminded us why it mattered. He was the first to believe there was something worth protecting here, before any of us saw it." Rachel raised her camera. "May I?" Berger tilted his head slightly, ears perked. Jared gave a nod. The shutter clicked as she captured the image. Man and dog beneath the treehouse that held the past, surrounded by a community that had become the future. That evening, as the sun dipped low, Jared stood by the wooden fence watching the day wind down. A breeze picked up, rustling the wind chimes Lyre had once hung from the porch, still there, still singing. A group of local kids ran past him, chasing a puppy that had escaped the training pen. One of the older girls stopped, panting, and called back. "Mr. Jared, Berger's the fastest, but he let the puppy win." Jared laughed softly, watching Berger trot behind the puppy, pretending to be outrun. It wasn't just training, it was legacy. It was letting go so others could run. Rachel came to stand beside him, notebook closed. "I think I understand now," she said. He nodded. "Good, because it's not about writing what we did. It's about remembering why we did it." Berger looked up at him, then turned his gaze outward, toward the tree line, where the shadows deepened. Still guarding. Always. The sky over Black Hollow bled orange and violet as the sun dipped behind the ridge. A soft wind carried the scent of pine and warm soil. Spring had fully arrived, brushing the world in gold and green. Jared sat on the front steps of the treehouse. His treehouse, hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee that had gone cold. He wasn't really drinking it, just holding something warm. His shoulders had softened over the past year, but the lines on his face were deeper, earned. Beside him, Berger lay stretched out on his side, breathing slow and steady. The old shepherd's black and tan coat had faded around the muzzle. His ears twitched with the sound of laughter from the campfire below, but didn't lift. Not unless he had to. Not unless there was something worth rising for. Jared looked down at him. "Still guarding, huh, boy?" Berger didn't move, but his tail thumped once against the floor. Across the clearing, lanterns flickered on, stringing light like fireflies from post to post. Veterans were swapping stories. Kids played tag between the garden beds. And under the newly built pavilion, a group of teens listened to a counselor read aloud. A passage about courage, about healing, about not walking alone. The old tree behind Jared creaked gently in the wind. It had stood here through storms, seasons, even siege. But tonight, it just watched. And so did he. From the cabin window behind him, a speaker buzzed to life. Jared didn't remember turning it on. Then a familiar voice came through, the soft hum of a podcast intro, the kind that played late at night when the world felt still. "Tonight, we honor a veteran and his dog, not for fighting a war, but for standing guard over what truly matters." The host's voice carried easily across the yard. Someone inside must have played it on purpose. Maybe Micah, maybe Lena, maybe someone who knew what tonight meant. Jared didn't move. He just listened. "They didn't build an empire," the voice continued. "They built shelter. They didn't strike oil or take power. They gave it away. And they did it without asking for applause." Berger shifted slightly, placing his chin across Jared's boot. And it started with a dog who refused to leave a broken man's side, who stood between him and the dark, who dug not for treasure, but for truth. Jared's eyes burned, but he didn't blink. Below them, laughter rose again. Someone burned marshmallows. A woman sang softly to her child. He looked out over it all, hand resting gently on Berger's head. "You hear that?" he whispered. "They're talking about you." The podcast faded to music, a soft guitar, then silence. Jared sat for a long time without speaking. Eventually, Berger shifted again, let out a slow, contented breath, and watched the last of the light disappear, behind the hills. Night settled over Black Hollow, but the lights stayed on, the people stayed safe, and the treehouse, old as it was, stood firm, its roots dug deep, its heart full of stories. As the camera pulled back, a final line appeared across the screen, fading in beneath the darkening sky. He didn't dig for gold, he dug for purpose. What's your story with a loyal pet? If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope. And if you believe that every dog deserves a second chance, especially those who've saved lives in silence, support our mission at German Shepherd Archive, where loyalty has a name and every bark tells a story. Because some heroes don't wear uniforms, some just never leave your side.